Hey everyone, welcome back to Ask Amy. Sorry I'm starting this one a couple minutes late, lost track of time. I have a great question today from Jen, and it's about feelings and what's normal and what's kind of the intention behind feelings and some of the things that we do with feelings that, you know, may or may not be necessary. So let me get to the question because she asks it a lot better than what I just said. So Jen says, "Hi Amy, my question is about feelings. I get that they come from thought. I've also now experienced that shift of changing thought, and it's been amazing. I get that the weather comes and goes and that we can just be weather watchers." Love that. "I'm involved with a reevaluation technique co-counseling group, and we regularly discharge feelings through shaking, crying, yawning, laughing, which brings us closer together. Discharging the feelings helps us feel fully, then detach from them. It brings clarity, but is all of this just a waste of time because the content doesn't actually exist? Is the suggestion that we don't need to be in sadness, for example, when we're grieving? I get that in just feeling the love, we can feel joy and sadness at the same time. Are the full spectrum of feelings like all the notes the orchestra can play, or are the principles suggesting there are some notes we just don't need to play?" So it's a really interesting question, Jen. And there's a few questions in here. So let me break it down a little bit. And let me just say, this goes without saying, this is always the case, but you know, when I address these, I'm just sharing how I see it. And there's a great chance that at some point in the future, I'm going to look back. I mean, I wouldn't look back at this, to be honest, but if I were to look back at this video at some point in the future, I might see it differently. I'm not at all saying like, this is the way it is. I certainly don't know the bigger meaning of life or the intention behind all of this stuff, if there is one. So, you know, I'm sure everyone knows that, but I just don't want to make it sound like, okay, here's the answer. You know, it's more just that I've explored this a lot, these kinds of topics. And so I'm always just sharing however it looks to me in that moment. So here's my caveat. So, so there are a few things in here. So Jen, the first thing I'm going to pick out that you asked about is this really excellent question of we humans experience all kinds of stuff, right? A huge range of stuff. Now, are we kind of meant to experience a huge range of stuff? So, you know, are all the feelings, like you say, the spectrum of feelings, like all the notes the orchestra can play, meaning we're here, I'm putting these words in your mouth, but I think what you mean is like we're here walking around this planet in these bodies, you know, having this physical experience and experiencing a huge range of stuff. And are we kind of meant to run the gamut? Or, as you ask, are the principles suggesting there are some notes we just don't need to play? So things like grief, sadness, shame, jealousy, anger, these are all things that in general people don't really enjoy. They don't really want those all that much. They're not, we don't view them as these nice, you know, just, oh, here's another note in the orchestra. We don't like them. So do we have to play those? Like, is that necessary? Is that part of the bigger picture here? I want to say yes, period. Yes to both. Now, okay, so we're not in charge of what shows up. We, as you say, you know, we feel the effects of thought. We feel thought. That's really just one thing. We feel this energy moving through us, similar to how if you hold a prism up to the window and light shines through, you get all kinds of stuff. So it's just one light, and it shines through that prism and you get all kinds of stuff bounced off, right? All kinds of lights and colors and shapes and whatever comes through that prism. However it comes through, there's a variety there. There's all kinds of stuff showing up, and it's just the light hitting it that does that. And that's kind of how we are. It's like this energy moves through us and gives us experience, and that experience can run the gamut, right? It's the full spectrum, as you say. And we aren't in charge of it. And we, you know, there's nothing we can do that as far as I can see, that's going to shape where it goes in any kind of sustainable, consistent, easy, doable way. It just isn't really going to work that way. So we get to experience all of this. And at the same time, so that's kind of yes to the first part, right? There's this whole orchestra, and I kind of assume, again, just my personal thing here, that if it's showing up, it's fine. Like, just by nature, just by the fact that we are these spiritual beings, and we have this stuff moving through us, and the stuff that moves through us is always changing. It's not real, it's not stable, and it's not dangerous. It's totally safe, and it's totally temporary, and it just does what it does, and it gives us this great experience of life. Just the sheer fact that it is there means, in my opinion, and the way I see it, is that it is okay. It is supposed to be there because it's there. It's just, it is what is, right? It's there. So I love this being in this place of just being able to just totally accept what is. And that doesn't mean we always can, or that it's always easy, or even that you always should. I'm not saying, oh, here's what you do. You accept what comes through you. But if we just look at it, it's like, well, if we aren't in charge of it, what else are you going to do? The alternative to seeing that it's okay, and seeing that you've lived through everything, and seeing that it changes on its own, the alternative is to judge it and not like it and resist it and try to shape it. And just in my experience and the experience of the people I've personally known, that doesn't work very well. So, you know, it kind of behooves us to just be in a place where we see that it just shows up and let it be there, right? So the full spectrum, anything can show up in any moment, and it does, and it's all okay. And then are there some notes we don't need to play? Well, the thing is, when we're in that place of seeing that it's all okay, seeing it as just light shining through that prism and different stuff bouncing off, but that's not us. That can't hurt us. It doesn't mean anything personally. It's not ours. It's just what's moving through us. Then yes to the second part. Like, that's exactly what happens is, and you say it, Jen, so well. Where do you say it? I get that in just feeling the love, we can feel joy and sadness at the same time. Exactly. Exactly. In what you call feeling the love, I would say in knowing that we aren't any of that stuff. We feel it, and it doesn't feel like, oh yeah, I want more of that. Oh no, not so much of that. It does feel like just different notes that the orchestra are playing. It's like, it's all part of the experience, and there's less of the liking, disliking, resisting, judging, trying to change. So in that sense, there kind of are notes that we don't need to experience quite so much, because shame, when it's burning within you and feels real and true and personal, and you're hating it and trying to make it go away, is nothing at all like shame when you're the watcher of it. And that's not a technique to be the watcher of it. I'm just saying, when you are the awareness, you are the container within which shame moves through, and it's just another way light is bouncing through that prism. That's not shame like the first kind of shame I said. So in that way, both are true. Both are true. We experience everything, and we don't have to hang out in our conception of certain kind of icky notes that we don't like. So I hope that's clear in some murky way. So your question about the group that you belong to and the technique you do, and you discharge these feelings, you say, through shaking and crying and that kind of stuff. And you say that you like it. It brings you clarity. It brings you closeness with the people. But is it just a waste of time because the stuff we're feeling is okay anyway? Well, it's not a waste of time if you like it. That's all you need. If it feels helpful to you, it is not a waste of time. Do you absolutely need to do these techniques to have this feeling show up and move through you and to get clarity and to detach? No, of course not. Of course not. Kids all over the world are just letting this process unfold. Adults all over the world are letting this process of thought and feeling showing up and just moving on, processing on its own completely naturally. It's just happening all the time. We don't have to have a hand in that. We don't have to manage it. We don't have to do any techniques. But that doesn't mean techniques are bad or a waste of time. If you like it, do it. I was trying to think of a good metaphor for this, and I was just thinking very simply, like, if you have a headache, most of the time, if it's not indicative of some bigger problem, when someone just gets a kind of minor headache, you know that headache's going to go away. Headaches go away. They come, they're there, they go. Before you know it, you realize it's gone. Now, sometimes it might occur to you to just, okay, I feel a little headache. I'll just go on with my day and I'm sure it'll go away. Other times you want to stop and take an aspirin, and that's totally fine too. So this is sort of like your aspirin. Like this is not a perfect metaphor, but what you're doing isn't absolutely necessary. Your stuff will move through you. It'll process, you'll get to clarity. All of that stuff is a natural thing happening in all human beings all the time. We don't need to step in and manage it. And sometimes you have a bright idea, hey, I really don't feel good. Let me go take an aspirin. Or, hey, I really love these people in this group, and this actually feels good for me. I don't need it, but I'm going to do it. So more power to you, I mean, kind of like the waste of time question is, to me, it's just like, do you enjoy it? Like, what else could we need? If it feels beneficial, anything that feels beneficial to us, by all means. And it's nice to know it's not necessary, that we'll get there on our own anyway. So thank you, Jen, for these great questions. I hope they've opened things up for people and helped you guys see things in a bigger way. If you have questions, please send them to AskAmy at thelittleschoolofbigchange.com. And I will be back here next Monday to answer them. Thanks so much for listening.